Hello and welcome to our Tuesday night learning live at 8. Tonight we have Kris and she is getting ready for a crop. So she's going to show you how she gets ready for a crop with National Scrapbook Day coming up very, very soon. It's the first weekend in May. She's going to share her tips and tricks on how to pack for a crop. So I am going to hand it over to Kris and she will tell you what she's doing tonight. There you
Hello,
go, Kris.
hello. Oh, sorry. I was just saying hello. Hello, everybody. Yep, Crafty Kris here. Heading to a crop on National Scrapbook Day. And on March 18th, if you remember back a couple of weeks ago, Sheri did a live on packing for a crafting event. And she had a great system and made some really good points. And so tonight I'm going to more delve into a bit more in the packing of your tool bag, considerations around my thought process and getting ready for an event, and some practical ideas to help make your load just a little bit lighter, literally. Just as every crafter has a different style, no two crafters pack for an event the same. So Sheri did allude to a basic tool list in her video, and she was writing her list out on her pad. Well, I do have a digital version of my packing list. My packing list changes as I move through the different crops that I go to throughout the year. I'm just going to bring it down a little closer so you can actually read it. I try to get everything on a page, and so it can be quite small. So there's a couple of sections I have on this packing list. So I have your basic tools for packing for a crop, and they always depend on the projects that you're completing and, of course, your preferences. I have a section for optional tools, and these are for specific projects. And I'll refer to my coordinator list a little bit further down. And I have basic table packing, personal comfort packing, and then things to check with event coordinator 1 month prior to the event so that you know exactly what you need to bring about a week or two before you're actually hitting the event. So some of the basic tools that I have in my treat are your Papercraft cutters, small and large with extra blades, adhesives, of course, and there's 3D glue dots, blah, 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 blah. I also include glossy accents in with my glue. It serves two purposes: to make things glossy, obviously, but also it can be used as a glue as well. And don't forget refills. Refills are super important because sometimes you'll be at an event where there isn't a local store handy or an on-site store. So if you run out of refills, there's not much you can do. Perhaps somebody at the crop might have an extra, but they're hard to give up when you know you're going to be crafting for a few days. And then you have your different scissors, your fussy cutting, long bladed, and your X-Acto knife, your tweezers, your piercing tools. Piercing tools I always bring no matter what because they serve multiple purpose for me as well. And then you have your rulers, your erasers, your pencil sharpener, because there's no point having a pencil without a pencil sharpener. And baby wipes, hand sanitizer for cleanups, and hand sanitizer is also good to keep the germs off your hands. I always bring whiteout and Post-it notes. They're probably the two most important things in my bag because I always make mistakes when I'm doing journaling, and I tend to use white as my journaling background. So whiteout is what I need. Post-it notes are, I like to have blank Post-it notes as well as the Post-it notes I put in my kits in order to be able to put finishing information on. So if I did find that I wasn't quite satisfied with a layout at the end of the weekend, then I could write a Post-it note as to what I want to do when I get home for that particular layout. I don't always use it, but if I didn't have the Post-it notes, well, I'd have to write on scrap paper, and scrap paper doesn't stick. unless you put glue on it, which wouldn't be practical. And you always have your Wink of Stella clear glitter pen because you can zhuzh things up a little with just a bit of glitter. I have a bag hanger, which I'll show you when I show you my bag. And I'll go through the next section. So I just want to talk a little bit about scrapbooking events before I move on to the optional tools. In my opinion, there are two basic types of scrapbooking events. There's the one-day events and the multi-day events. I hear the one-day events are usually referred to as crops, and the multi-day events are usually referred to as retreats. There are many variations of these two basic events. Some may just have you and a few friends, and others may have upwards of 400 new and old friends. So no matter what kind of event, you will need a basic toolkit, and you will need to do planning, because planning is necessary at either event in order to make those events productive. The first step in packing tools is always to make sure you check with your friends to see what each of them is bringing. And that way, a small group can use each other's tools, and no one is responsible for bringing everything. So what I mean by that is someone can bring the inks and the stamps, another person can bring the die cutter and the dies, and someone else can bring the paints and the paintbrushes, so that everybody has a little bit of responsibility, but nobody is the one that's being, the pack rat that's packing all the stuff. All right, so I'm moving into the optional. So the basic is the things, of course, that you need no matter what you're doing. The optional is for specific purposes and projects. They can include things like sets of file folders, bone folders, whiteout if you're not like me, and I've got it on my primary list. Journaling pens. I usually just use black, so I would have a black pen in my basic toolkit. Other pens like glitter pens, scoreboard, stamp cleaner if you're doing any kind of card making or things where you're going to be folding. Embossing powders and heat gun. Again, it's more of a card making thing than a scrapbooking thing. Punches, extra ephemera that are your go-to for any project. Now, this is important. The extra ephemera doesn't have to be specific to your project, but it's that pile of stuff you have that is generic that you can use for anything, like hearts and stars and shaped kinds of things. And those are an extra that you would bring in order to just beef up those kits in case you need a little something in that corner. If you're doing mixed media, you'd need to make sure you bring your water cup and your brushes, your mixed media supplies, your stencils, the proper paper, paper towels, scrap paper. If you're a stapler and you like to attach things to your pages or your cards, make sure you bring those extra staples with your stapler. Shape cutters are a good thing to have as an optional tool. And if you know that you want to have circles or rectangles or triangles on your pages, those things would be optional tools that you'd bring for those specific projects. I've got down here album pages and pocket pages because some people work chronologically, and their numbering of whether they do a single page or a double page all depends on what the last thing ended up being. And if you're like me, I do calendar pages, so there's always the page on a 2-page spread where I have the calendar on the right, but what do you put on the left? So having your album with you and album pages and pocket pages to put your new or completed pages right into your album are often a good idea if that's how you scrapbook. And then, of course, cardstock colors to match your layouts. Basic table packing. This is the work area. The work area is always at a premium at these events because you either have 4 feet or 6 feet. And sometimes if you're splitting a 6-foot table, you'll have 3 feet, but that's a rarity. So with the basic table packing, I include things like laptops, iPads, phones, headphones, earbuds, chargers of any type, extension cords, power towers, a light. And it's really great if you can get phone chargers on your light, because then you don't need all the chargers that go with all the bits and pieces. You just plug them in right into your a light station. 12 by 12 stiff paper holder for finished layouts if you're not an album person, and water bottle, coffee mugs, snacks, eyeglasses, magnifying glass, because yes, ladies, we are aging. Some of us, I include myself in that bunch. And then you want to bring a cushy for your tushy, which is a quote from a good friend of mine who I've traveled to many crafts weekends, because you never know what kind of chairs you're going to have. And it's always good to bring something for your poor bottom, because you spend a lot of time sitting. A shoe rack or shelf rack or table clip organizers to keep stuff off your table, not on your table, or up so that you stack up rather than all over your table. And comfy shoes that you can slip on and off, especially during bad weather events. So that's your basic table packing. I will put this list in a file in the comments when it gets loaded into. Darlene, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, thank you. Is this going to be put on the FB Facebook group?
We could for sure link it to our inner circle.
Okay, so I will have this put into the file section so that you can have easy access to it. It is a Word document, so you can edit it however you please. Thanks, Darlene. And then for personal comfort, Kleenex, hand sanitizer for healthy hands. If you've already got it up here in the basic tools, you don't need it in the personal comfort area. And Tylenol and other pain relief items, your meds, obviously. And you always want to bring an extra day in case of poor weather or car malfunctions, where you end up being stuck where you are for an overnight. You want chapstick, you want layers of clothes that you can put on and take off if the space is chilly or hot. Your usual clothing, and enough for the numbers a day of the days that you're going to be staying, but a +1. So that extra day just in case something happens. And extra undies. Now, you may laugh when you hear that, but trust me when I say I have been at events where some of our ladies have had so much fun that the giggles get going, and so do the piddles. So having an extra couple of pairs of underwear in your collection helps you to really thoroughly enjoy your weekend and not worry about those oopsies. My last section here is called Things to Check with the Event Coordinator 1 month prior to the event. And these are things to help you plan exactly. Oh, my camera is going wonko. Hang on a second there. Sorry, folks.
Kris,
Yeah.
Ellen wrote that she doesn't see snacks on your list.
Oh, snacks are on the list. Where did I put snacks? Why? Did I misread it? No, snacks are supposed to be on the list. I will double write it, but I think I put it somewhere. I can't find it now, but I'm putting snacks. That would be on your table packing.
Yeah, it's there. It's under water bottles.
Water bottle, coffee mug, snacks, eyeglasses, and magnifying glass. There we go. So that's there. See, I would never forget snacks, and you'll see in a moment there's another thing I would never forget. So things to check with the coordinator of the event. Will there be a die cutting machine and dies at the crop? That alleviates you having to truck all those things. Will there be stamps and inks that you can borrow? Will there be punches that you can borrow? Will there be a store on site, or I'm going to put nearby? A lot of crops have a store on site, or even if you're close to one. Can I sit near a power outlet? You definitely want to make sure you ask that question and book that seat, because they are at a premium at a lot of these retreats. And also just a general idea of what the temperature is like in the room. Usually speaking, the coordinator has been to the space and has an idea of what the temperature would be like for ladies, or has asked that question of the person renting the space. So you could help, it could help you with the packing of how many clothes to bring. And this is the most important one to ask. Is there a Tim Hortons nearby? Because you know me, I've got to have my coffee. Most events have beverages like water and coffee, but it's just nice to know if you need a bigger kind of snack than the little snacks you have at your basic table packing. You can always hop over to a Tim Hortons for a little sandwich. So I'm just going to lift my camera up now. So this list I will put, as I said, in the Facebook group, the Inner Circle Facebook group. Whoops. Sorry, guys. Got you tilted. All right. So now that we've got the basics for the tools, I'm going to talk. I just want to mention that the work area at a crop or retreat is at a premium. To make the best use of this, follow a checklist, first of all. And I lost my thought. Whoops. And you can edit this list. So if you follow this list and just remove the things you don't need for that particular crop, you'll get to your destination with the things you need. Oh, see my messy desk here. All right, so I just want to show you, and I'm going to lift my camera up even higher. You get to really see my messy desk. And I'm going to show you my home travel bag. So this is my home travel bag. Woo, I need to even go higher. This puppy is full of everything. So this really is not something that I would or should be taking with me on a crop, because there's just all kinds of everything, like multiples of different scissors, multiples of different rulers. So it's a pretty messy thing, and it weighs a ton. This is my travel bag. Now, if I can move this over a little bit, you can see that it is considerably smaller and considerably tidier. So I got it, I intentionally purchased a smaller travel bag because I didn't want to have to, I have to force myself to really pare things back. Otherwise, I would be carrying everything with me. And the home bag does occasionally make it to a retreat, but it's usually only because I'm either too lazy to pack this one properly, or it's a very long event and I really have no clue all the things I'm going to need. Now on the list, I put a clip. This clip is a handy dandy clip that clips your bag onto the side of your table. And I'm going to kind of show you what that looks like. So hang on. See how that is clipped under my table? And the reason for that is so that it stays off of that premium space, because you'll go in and out of that bag regularly. So you need it close by, and having a clip that will clip onto your table in some way will help to get that out of your workspace and allow you to have a nice space, a lot of space to work in. So you can see, after looking at this list and the toolkit, you can see how big your toolkit can get. So additional materials like current albums that you're working on with all your photos, extra album pages and pocket pages, extra cardstock and pattern paper, all add into the poundage that you're lifting and moving around when you're taking things to an event. So to prevent the too much stuff situation, planning is really important. So first you need to be realistic about what you can get done. I have nothing to look at, so here, we'll look at this. I know that if I have pre-made commercial kits, I can usually get anywhere from 5 to 7 done per day, depending on how good the instructions are and how complicated the kits are to build. If they're complicated, I can generally get 3 to 5 of them done in a day. My own pre-planned kits, I can generally do 5 to 7 if I have planned them well. Collection packs make me think harder, and there are a lot of things to choose from. So using the entire pack, I can only really do 2 to 3 of these in a day. Knowing this helps me to know how many kits I can do in the time I will be away. Other things to consider are whether or not you're starting from scratch or finishing up your pages, or doing both. For instance, if I'm finishing layouts, I will need to know what parts are missing and pull these things out of my stash to minimize what I bring for finishing. I always check to see if the location will have public access to die cutting machines, embossing folders, and punches. This way, I only need to bring what is not available, and knowing if there is an on-site store is very helpful. So when starting a new layout, I always plan the photos and themes and pull out materials that complement these, unless I know I'll be away for a long enough time to finish an album. So for instance, with a trip album, I divide that trip into events and focus on an event to create my kits. I always take too much stuff if I don't plan ahead. So what I mean by that is if I had a 5-day trip and I did something different on five days, I would plan kits for each of those 5 days and only put in the stuff I know I'm going to use for that particular theme of day. So let me give you an example, and let's do a kit. Oh, where's all my stuff? So let's say I'm doing a birthday party, and I have all of these photos. Whoops, there's a couple more in here to use. So here are my photos. So I have pictures of my granddaughter opening presents before we ate dinner. And I have a picture of my granddaughter blowing out her candles. And then after dinner on this particular birthday, we went and walked the 4 teacup puppies they have. And I just thought that was brilliant. This isn't a teacup she's sitting in. It's actually a flower pot. So she's not a teacup puppy. She's a flower pot puppy. So in order to get this kind of organized into a kit, I've divided them into sort of an idea of 3 themes, but I want to focus on either a 1-page layout or a 2-page layout. I try to avoid 3-page layouts if possible, because I used to have flap paper protectors, but you can't find them anymore. So now I've had to change my style a little bit. So what I did is I decided that these were all sort of the same color range and the same location. And these were just, 3 interesting pictures of the cake and our walking endeavors with the dogs. So this is going to be one page, 2-page, and this is going to be another 2-page. So once I know how many photos there are, I hit Pinterest because I love Pinterest. And I can put in how many pictures I have, whether they're vertical or horizontal, how many I want on one side of the 2-page spread and how many I want on the other side of the 2-page spread. And generally speaking, I will get hits for that with pretty nice layouts. When I did it for this group, though, I found that I didn't really like any of the layouts. So I decided, okay, well, let's just focus on one side of the page. the 2-page spread. So I'm focusing on the portrait, and then the envelope, and then the card, and then when she located her baking tools. So there's, oops, sorry, I lied. So that's 3 on one side. And then the other side is going to be when she located her baking tools. Then she found the money, and then she started looking at the baking tools in more depth. So those are my 2 pages. I went into Pinterest and I found a layout that I liked. I'm interpreting this in the papers and things that I like. And so what I've done is I've marked off the different paper that I'm going to need. So I have a number 1 for this outside area. I have number 2 for the 2 inside pieces. I have a number 3 for this piece that goes under the photos and this little strip. I have a number 4 for this larger piece that goes under the photos and this little bit, tabby bit at the top. I'm not worried about the little doodads yet, but so this tells me that I need 4 accent papers. So let me get my photos together. And what I'm going to do is simply do this on this side and then mirror it. And that's how I'm going to do my 2-page layout. So pulling the paper, I needed to have paper that would be the outside edge. So I chose an orangey based color because my photos are very brown, and oranges and yellows and things go better with browns than pinks and reds. So these are going to be my base pages. And then I needed an accent for these 2 larger pieces. So I chose this coordinating paper out of a kit that I had. So that's going to be these 2 pieces. Then I needed a darker piece going down underneath. And so I chose this, which is orange, and it's coordinating. And then my 4th piece was, I want to have a little bit of an accent. So I chose coordinating balloons. So these are, I've got 2 sheets of each. So these are my photos that are going to go with this 2-page layout. In addition to that, in case, if you notice on my actual layout, it doesn't have the photos being matted. I'm not sure if I like that or not, but it's all good because I've picked out a couple of pieces of paper that coordinate with the colors in the balloons. And I only had 1 piece of each of these colors, so there will be multicolored back mats. So that's what I've added there. So this and the papers and the mat and the photographs are going to go all into one Ziploc bag. But before I go, I need to have a title on the bottom. And when I laid out the pictures, they literally go right across the top, and they are on this paper. So I have a happy birthday that's going to go on one side of the paper. And then I have coordinating little fins that I'm going to cut out. And these guys are going to become these elements. So I'm going to cut out these fans, and they're going to represent those elements. So I might cut out 3 to represent the big one, and a smaller 3 to represent the medium one, and so on. So that's how I bring these elements out. Now I also have, with this collection, or not with this collection, but in my collection, I have things like It's Your Special Day already printed. I have little bits of words, best party ever. And they are similar colors to what I'm using. Some of them aren't, which I won't use, but the yellow and the orange are going to work well. So I've got that put there as well. So let's get that out. All right. And this all goes in one page or one bag. So that's my bag, and that's all that's going. That's one layout. That didn't take very long at all. Even when I did it myself, I literally pulled out the collection kit and just broke it all up. Then with this layout, I have 3 pictures of a cake. One where it's the cake all lit, and another where she's starting to blow it out, and another where she's got it blown out. And then I have the dog walking episode. So I decided that I would do the same thing on this as I did on the other, and I would flip a one-page layout. So I picked this one. It really has nothing to do with birthdays, but I like the strips that were involved. So here are my pictures. And I do pictures of differing sizes because I think that's more interesting. And it's also cheaper when you're doing your photo printing. So my base papers on this are going to be, again, I did my numbering. 1, 2, 3. There's 3, 4. There's 3 again, and 5. And then 6, 7, and 8. So I'm going to be using both sides of some of the papers for this layout. And I am using white for my background. So we have the white. That's the number 1. And I am going to be using a variety of these papers. So I have same colorway as the others. So all of the decorative elements and things that I have on the other page, I can use some of them on this page. So I have candles and I have blue stripes. I'm intending to use the center section of this and maybe cut out the balloon, but I also have just plain. And these guys actually are about the width of the number 3. So I could use the edges of this as my number 3 strip that goes across the page because I have 4 sides. I also have this, which has the orange strip across the bottom, and nice big orange strip across the bottom here. And then I could also fussy cut those if I wanted to. And it has a nice plain, calm background. And then I have this one. I'm not going to cut this out. It's too big, but I could use some of this as a strip. And this has the blue background that you see here. Depending on what size I need is what size I'll use. And so I am literally going to do, there's 6 papers here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you flip them over, you get your additional pages. Plus, I'm going to be using those for the mats in this. And then
Kris,
oops, sorry.
Sorry to bug you. Sheila's wondering if you can post the pictures of your layouts that you picked as well in the group.
Sure, I can post those layouts and they'll have my numbers already on it. The other thing I can do is when I'm done, I'll post those in that same post. So you can see how I went from this and this planning into the finished project. All right. So that's what I'll need for that. I don't think I had any additional things. Nope. I'm looking around. I didn't because I plan to use some of these little guys and some of these little guys and some of the things I cut out or any leftover paper that's in this as well to add as elements to this page. So there's 2 layouts right there. Or 2 double page layouts right there. So they both would end up, like I said, each in their own little bag. I would start with this one, and then whatever's left over in this one, it gets transferred into this one. And there's my 2 layouts, and they go in baggies and they go in my kit. All righty. We move on to the next thing. So it's great to do all this, kit making and everything else. But what happens if you get there and you just kind of get bored? So often, if I'm getting bored from doing layouts, I always bring a go bag. And in my go bag, I have different kinds of things. So I have a small package of things that need fussy cutting. I bring markers and pre-stamped images to color. I have layouts that I put together that don't have any photographs, but they have everything else. So like a kit without the photographs. I also bring my iPad in a book. And my iPad is usually for non-crafty activities like game playing. And that, with all of those other options thrown in, I find that I have no problem keeping myself busy for that whatever length of time, as long as I've planned that I need things for that long. And the thing to remember is that every event will be a combination of crafting, connecting with others, eating and sleeping. I try to get a few things done before I delve into actual making. So, for instance, once I've unloaded my stuff in my area, I set up my table the way I like it. So that's the first thing I do right off the bat. I try to keep the area as uncluttered as possible by keeping my kits and everything on the floor except for the one I'm using, and having a minimum of stuff on my desk. If you have a tool like cutters and things, and you don't have something that hangs off the desk to keep those on, or you don't have a shoe shelf that you can slip those in to get them off the desk, you may have to use a portion of your desk to store those things when you're not using them. But usually I try to clear everything off that I can, and I have it either hanging off my desk or on a shelf stacked. Then I make a run to the on-site store. So I don't do it to shop. I do it just to look at what's there. So that if during the day or the week or however long I'm there, I find that I need a little something somewhere, I have a vague recollection of what the store has so that I can go there and pick those things up to finish a layout. Now, I will not look at paper when I'm at an on-site store. Because I've prepared my kits, I force myself to use what I've prepared. But the odd little decorative thing that just finishes that little spot, or if I run out of my, Wink Stella pen, for instance, and I need to replace it, that kind of thing I will purchase. But you want to try to use your stuff first and then only buy things if you really need them. After that, I'll look at the auction items. So I go to a lot of fundraising events. And so I want to see what's on auction. And that allows me to kind of think, throughout the day or the weekend or the few days, what I want to put my bids on. Then I visit each of the tables and I say hello. This is the part that might not be a comfort zone for some, but I'm a chatty kind of girl. So I visit each table and I say hello. And if I know who they are, that's great. If I don't know who they are, I introduce myself. And then that way I know I've engaged with each person at least once. And I don't feel like I've left anybody out, especially if they're friends and people that are acquaintances. And then the rest of my socializing happens if somebody visits me, or if I sit with them at meals. And I make a point of moving my seating at meals so that I get to sit with different people. And I find that it's well received. I mean, people like to be able to chat with someone new every once in a while and meet a new friend. And you've got to understand that people that are new to these retreats or new to you in terms of that particular retreat, they're probably sitting there wishing somebody would say hello so they don't feel left out. So that's kind of what I do. And after I've done all of that, then it's time to create. So that usually all gets done in the morning of the first day, and then I'm good to create. And the rest of the weekend usually goes fairly smoothly. And it's nice to be able to, I don't remember names, just telling you up there if up front, if I ever see you at a retreat, I probably won't remember your name unless I see you regularly. But at least they know that my face has been in front of them and I've been friendly and said hello. So that's basically it for how I pack the tools and my kits for going to a crop. Now, I am predominantly a mixed media person, so that is a whole different thing. And I have a tendency to avoid mixed media when I go to crops, especially one-day crops, because it is a lot of stuff that you have to bring for that. So I generally do my mixed media at home, but what allows me to have the time at home is taking my scrapbooking with me to crops so that I don't have to also do that at home as well. And I have become more of a card maker lately. So what I might do is I might do a package of different cards as well as some kits for scrapbooking. And I like Sheri's idea from her last video about how she puts together a card kit, because I didn't know how to do that. I was sort of just trying to, throw everything in the bag, because this I'm really practiced at, but not so much the card things. So I appreciate Sheri's perspective on how to put together a card kit. So now I am going to add those into my takeaways for weekend events and one-day events. And now that's it. Are there any questions?
It looks very good, Kris. Thank you so much for all the tips on what to bring to a crop. Very insightful. That checklist is amazing. Things that you wouldn't have considered. It's perfect. I think our community is really going to find this checklist really helpful. I also like the idea of your go bag, because we all get bored of doing stuff. Sometimes, our inspiration's not there. So having something else to do, whether it's a book or iPad to play games, or if you're a stitcher, crocheter, just having something else to keep us busy, that's really important as well. So thank you so much for sharing your tips, and I hope everyone got something out of it that for their next crop they can use and pack all their goodies with them. Oh,
Yeah.
Ellen says that she's not carrying her house with her. Donna says great tips, so very, very helpful. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for our Learning Live tonight. And if you have photos to show us how you prep for your crop adventures, feel free to use our inner circle and pop some photos there, or any tips that you have. I know we all need some tips and inspiration on how to pack for these crops, because as Ellen says, we pack our whole house with us. So thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we will see you tomorrow night for What's New. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.